Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm super grateful and super humbly joined by one of my old clients, Jazz. Jazz has been on one of the greatest comeback stories I've ever seen, other than my own. Jazz is one of my first five clients. She's come through the darkness into the light, borrowing an analogy from wherever that came from. She's been on one of the great stories. She's going to share it today. She's about to start something really awesome. And yeah, I'm just super proud to be able to be circling back, helping my old clients get out there now that have started something cool. And there's a few more in the pipeline, but Jazz is the first today. Jazz, as one of my first clients and now my first client podcast testimony, welcome today. Tell all of my listeners and followers who you are and what you're going to be doing and your story and everything else. And I'm just going to sit here and just be super proud of how far you've come. So, Jazz, in less than 2 years, welcome to my podcast. Let's go.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathan. It's just like I'm so glad to be joining you today. I feel like this was a long time coming.
100%. Only been a quick year and a bit.
Yeah. So originally I was born in Canada. I moved to Australia in 1995. I have two children. One is almost 30 and one is 8. I have had several lifetimes really in this life, and currently I have just come out of a really dark part of that journey, and I am extremely excited to review how we started and where we met, and then sort of explain where I'm at and where I'm going. I'm really happy to share that with your listeners.
Well, Jazz, without any further ado, let's share that story. So let's take our viewers, or our viewers now, our viewers and listeners back to the start of the whole thing. And yeah, we'll go back to the start and work our way through, I reckon.
Okay, so mid 2022, I found Dale Holmes on a random Telegram video that popped up in my Telegram feed. I watched him. I was like, this guy totally resonates with me. And then I saw some videos that he had shared that you were in, and you were explaining that you had started your self-sabotage business and you were focusing on teens. And I was going through a really tough decision-making process to leave a relationship, and I had a lot of stuff to deal with. And so I reached out to you as an adult to get some self-sabotage support, and yeah, so from there we had a couple of meetings and I filled out your questionnaire, and then we did a couple of sessions which really helped me to find freedom in what I had experienced through my life. So I had separated parents when I was quite young. There's some abusive behavior when I was quite young. I had alcoholism, and there was some drug addictions in the past as well. And I was really struggling to break out of an abusive relationship. I had stayed for all the wrong reasons for a really long time, and none of them were for my best or highest good. I was just stuck, and I really just needed a push out of where I was, and I needed it to be from someone who wasn't in my life every day. It needed to be from someone who had skills to help me realize my own potential. And that's where you came in. It was confronting, and I was nervous and I was scared. And I think it took me I don't know, probably over a week to fill out the questionnaire. I had kept starting and then stopping. And, I really just needed to blurt it all out of me to be able to then shift through what I would consider a really dark period. Coming to the realization that I had to end my relationship was really tough, because I even though I knew it was the right thing, I have a child who has a disability, and I always thought that if I left, it would be harder to be a single parent with a child with a disability than to be in a relationship, regardless of how difficult the relationship was. At least there was always someone else there. And that mindset kept me where I was, and it wasn't serving me. It was actually making us all miserable. So I really needed to make the hardest choice ever, which was to leave, to help us all grow and move on from what we were experiencing. And that's having accepted what needed to happen. I went through some really dark moments, but it then just turned around so much. So I probably should explain. So my son Cameron is 8 years old. He had an injury when he was quite young, and he lost his vision. He was then diagnosed as autistic, and I was really managing all of his care on my own. My partner at the time was hardly around, didn't support us whilst going through like therapies and schooling. It was really tough to help Cameron without the support of someone who needed to be helping me. I think what happened was he didn't want to accept what had happened to Cam, even though he probably did all of the research early on to help us figure out what happened, whilst I was grieving for the actual injury. He really couldn't deal with the day-to-day support that Cameron needed at that time. So fast forward about 4 years, and I'm at burnout. I'm literally exhausted. I can barely like go a day without crying. And I really just needed to have a break, which brought me to like reaching out to you. So it was a tough time. The therapists, they could see what was happening. And I really just needed to make that jump, that leap, to take back my life that I had sort of let everything else be more important. And yeah, the first step was reaching out to you and getting that nudge, getting that push out of what I was stuck in, all the programming, and then moving through to acting on what I needed to do. So that then brought in a whole new like trajectory of my life. If I looked at myself in say November 2022, and now fast forward to today, I could never have guessed that I would be where I am. Like, it's literally mind-boggling. And I'm so excited for me and Cam, because it actually is changing so quickly and so rapidly right now. I'm just about to launch a business. I'm so excited for how our life is changed, and like the experience coming through that darkness, but like becoming so aware of where we can actually go with this has just been incredible. I basically just followed all the little nudges and winks that I would get from the universe. Like I said before we started recording, I woke up one morning and I had this urge to go and find a job. At that point, I had been at home with Cam full-time, managing 2 schools. I woke up and said, okay, like, all right, I'm going to go and follow this nudge. And then a week later, I had a job. We'd spent 4 months looking for a rental property to move out of where we were, and I couldn't get anything. I landed this job at a real estate agent, and within a month they offered me a house. Like, so, of course I went through the vetting process. Like, they were they treated me just like anyone else, but I was able to access things that I hadn't been able to access before. I was just following that intuitive like nudging. And then I did something that I'd never done before. I basically let go of all of my fears.
Oh,
Up until then I was yeah. I was scared. I was scared. How is I going to get a house? How is I going to afford it? Like all of the things that go through your mind, how am I going to manage if I can't manage in a relationship with a child that needs extra support?
after some technical difficulties, Jazz, just circle back to where and carry on. Thanks.
Okay, so I managed to get this house, and then like I literally just let go of all of my fears.
Yeah.
I had complete trust in the universe that everything was going to be okay. Normally I would be panicking about money, care, support, but because it wasn't there, I just released it all and went, okay, we're here. I've followed all the nudges so far. I'm letting go of everything and just trusting that everything will be okay. And literally everything just snowballed. Like I had this job, I had this house, money was coming in, we were being looked after. I didn't have to worry about anything. All of a sudden, like there was this just flow on effect of me trusting that everything was going to be okay, and it just kind of exploded. I really was overwhelmed actually by how quickly it happened. There's always going to be times when I wasn't certain, but I just kept going back to that feeling of knowing everything was going to be okay. Oh, I'm getting emotional. It was like, and it's such a good feeling, like remembering how I felt. Like, like it's all coming back. I had no stake in the outcome, right? I just was full force going 100%, 100 miles an hour. Like I literally just let it all go. And then we had an issue with Cam at school. He had an incident with someone at the school, and I realized at that point I needed to pull him out. I'd spent 2 years with him learning Braille, which is a really tough thing to teach when you don't know it. And the school will spend a lot of time saying, you are never going to be able to teach him this. You're so far outside of understanding what this means for him. You're only ever going to be able to read it with your eyes. You probably will never get past the alphabet, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, it was so ingrained into me over those 2 years that when it came to time to pulling him out, I was just like, how am I going to do this? This is just the next thing, right? The next lesson. How am I going to do this and give him the start that he needs so that he can be his best? And with the trauma that happened at school, there was no question in my mind he had to come out. Like that was it. I was working 4 days at the time. I said to my work, I need to drop a day. I need to be home with Cam. And then I was able to manage to get support workers to cover the other days. So they would go and take him to appointments while I was working. So I dropped down to 3 days a week. And it then became really clear to me that I needed to find a Braille tutor for him. So I started looking. And finding a Braille tutor is super hard. Like it's not an easy thing. It's a very, very like restricted type of learning. And I actually even posted on Jobs Without Jabs, like to find someone. I was so like, I sent it to the entire Australian like community. I was like, someone out there has to be able to help him. And then whilst like going through this process of trying to find someone to teach him, I then started like, we have all the stuff we need here. We've got the Perkins Brailler, we've got Braille books, we've got, you know, libraries that send us books. So I just started sitting down with him and helping him to read what we had. Then I would like ask him to write sentences. So I just started doing this process of me getting used to helping him become better at what we were doing. And I found a Braille tutor in the end, and he's actually completely blind. So all of the things, all of the programming that I was given, oh, you'll never be able to do this, you'll never be able, I've actually had some huge wins with Cam with Braille. The Braille tutor's like, I can't believe how much you're getting him to do at home. He's really succeeding in it. And, you know, it's just another part of that process of not listening to what everyone else is saying. Like the school was trying to stop us from leaving because Cameron was worth quite a bit of funding to them and they didn't want to lose that. And that whole process of trying to like fear me into not leaving because I can never do it was just about them getting the funding so that they could do what they wanted with the funding. It had nothing to do with my son or like caring for him or being the best that they could be for him. It was always about the money. And I haven't looked back from bringing Cameron home. I quite often have parents who are still attending one of his schools say, oh, they're still asking about Cameron, you know. And I'm happy that they are because I want them to see how we're succeeding. Like, again, if I was to look at myself when I first met you, at the point where I was with him and trying to like to look at myself as his teacher, I could never have done that then. And so it was just another like awakening to how much I could do outside of all of what was stopping me from realizing our potential. It was just another step towards the goal. So now I've got this house and I've got this job and I'm homeschooling my son and I've got support workers who come in and help look after him while I'm working. And I'm like getting all these messages from my daughter. She's saying she needs to go under for a laparoscopy. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You need to see a homeopath. And she's like, well, if you know so much about homeopaths, why don't you find one for me? And I was like, and this whole time, like Melissa's course starts popping up in my newsfeed. Dale's talking about Melissa's course. Every couple of days, I've got this like Instagram or Telegram or, you know, it's always there. And I'm like, okay, I get what's happening here. It's me. I'm supposed to be the homeopath. Like literally it's throwing it in my face. And I'm like, okay, righto. What's next? Then what do we do? And of course, the little, you can afford that. How are you going to be able to manage that on top of everything else you're managing? You'll have to take up more work. You'll have to, and I'm like, stop talking. You know, I'm like, that's not me. That noise that's there is just another program trying to stop me from reaching my potential. So I reached out, I joined the course, and through that, I have met a mentor who has been helping me treat Cam. And of course, like I didn't want to treat him myself because I didn't want my ex to think I was using him as a guinea pig while I'm studying. So I reached out to this really highly sought after homeopath in Adelaide, and we spoke, and she had actually worked with Peter Berryman and also Melissa. And I was like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? Like, this is so perfect. Like, it's the biggest synchronicity I could have ever experienced. So the Instagram, the Telegram, my daughter, now that homeopath is working with these people, it was just so clear to me that this was the next step for me to join this course. And then how this woman helped me treat Cam after his injury. So we start Cameron on this course of homeopathic remedies, and while we're talking, she's asking me about stuff, and she goes, I'm going to treat you as well. And she said to me, you'll probably notice in the next week or so that your daughter will reach out to you. And I was like, oh, she hasn't really spoken to me since the breakup. She's really been angry at me, actually, and I've barely seen her at this point at all for almost a year. And we would speak, and it would just not be, it wouldn't be what I wanted our relationship to be like. So I would pause it for a while and hold back, because I didn't want any more damage to come into that relationship. I really wanted her to come to terms on her own with what had happened, and then potentially have some kind of reconnection later. So I was really like cautious of how I would speak with her. And once I started the remedies, she called me the next week, like, and it wasn't always great. There was some really tough times, but over the course of the beginning of this year, and she underwent her operation, and I got her the remedies that I wanted her to take so that she could heal properly. There was some real connection building. We basically speak almost every day now. She is really understanding me in a different way. From our conversations over the course of this last sort of 3 to 6 months, she's really begun to understand that I am a different person, and I haven't had to do that like in a forceful way. It's just happened naturally. So rather than trying to show her what I've done to change, she's just sort of come in, watched me, and through our conversations learned that I'm a different person. It's not like I'm a different person, but I look at things in a different way, and I approach things in a different way. And I know that our relationship is growing to a point where it's going to be far better now than it has ever been. And to me, that's really sad, because I often think about what her childhood was like. She had a really tough time, and I was a kid. Like, I was literally a kid. And there are things that I've learned through having Cameron, and I reflect back on what I would have done when she was a child. And I can see how much growth that I've had. And it saddens me that I was so young and naive, and not the parent she probably needed, but she was definitely the parent, like I was definitely the parent that she chose. And I feel like we are finally coming through into our like time where we can be super, super close and be a real family. So yeah, she went through her operation. I gave her the remedies, and when I look back at the last 9 months or so, I realized that homeopathy chose us, like it found us, and then it changed our lives. It's given my family something that I never thought we would have, because it was so broken. but I can see how having introduced it into our lives, how much has changed and how much for the better. It was just the natural next step for me, particularly in our healing journey, especially with Cam, because because I'd gone down natural like therapy road with him. I've tried all of the things. I've never done any Western medicine or allopathic like focus with him. I've really always done traditional type medicines with him and therapies. It was always going to be the next step. So naturopaths and CBD oil, and I'd gone down those roads. And then when this came up, and it was so like, it was just like it was knocking on my door telling me to answer, right? So I did. And I've just finished the first 6-month practitioner course. I'm just about to dive into the 2-year course with Mel. My like entire world is changing again, and I'm so excited for it because, like you said, it's only been a couple of months since we spoke, right? Like our original time, in September 2022. We're not even 2 years down the track, and here I am, like basically embarking on a journey I had never expected in my entire life. Being a small business owner, I would never have even thought that that was a thing at all. So it's just so exciting. Yeah, the journey's been so awesome, and I always put it right back down to like when I let go of everything and knew we were going to be okay, and just never let that fear come in. And when I heard it, I would just be like, nah, that's not me. I know that's not me. That's something else. And just kept going and pushing. And, yeah, it's just been such an incredible journey getting to this point. I'm so glad to be able to share it with you because, like, who better to share it with, really?
Oh, that's awesome. I just sat there and I'm so proud of how far you've come, and it's a really awesome thing. And you should be very proud of yourself too. Is there anything else you'd like to share with my audience before we? So actually, I'll ask. You're a guest now, Jazz. Oh, you're a guest now. If there is someone that has been where you've been, so they're where you were in September of 2022 or even before, what would be your advice to that person to take their step towards their journey, Jazz?
Look, I would say go deep within yourself and really look at what you want your life to be. And even if you don't have the grand plan, like choose small, take that one step like forward to where you want to be. Let go of what everyone else thinks and just decide for yourself. Even if it's the first time in your whole life you've ever done that, like just take that one step to your happiness, because no one else is going to give you happiness. It comes from you. Your decision to move towards your life of your dreams, or even just to the front door, is going to change everything for you. It's like nothing changes unless you make the change, right? So you have to make the step. It's like breaking a pattern. If you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and nothing changes, there's a reason why it's not changing. So step to the left and go out the next side door, just make that change. And so many amazing things can happen. Like, yeah. Another example of that was, Christmas. I just spent the last 3 months paying off my course, and it was just before Christmas, and I was sitting there going, how am I going to do this? And we went out for work lunch, and I didn't let the fear come in, but I was like, Christmas is going to be really simple this year. We'll have a little bit of this, we'll have a couple of presents. And then as I'm sitting down to this work lunch, the boss starts handing out these cards, and I'm watching people opening them, and I'm like, people are reacting really strangely to this. There's got to be something in there that's going to be life-changing. And I realized again that I was being looked after, and everyone in that room didn't understand what was happening except for me. Like, I knew that this was the universe providing something pretty awesome. And when I got the card and opened it up, there was a nice little gift in there that literally changed our life. And I just like burst into tears because I was just like, I didn't know what was going to happen. And then everything was fine again. Like, it just, once you take a step towards where you want to go, the universe already knows you're going to be doing it. So it's already put like steps in place or motions in place to catch you when you don't think you're going to be able to get through the next phase. And that just pushed us through to the next phase. And it was literally like, I walked away, I got myself recomposed, I went back, and I was just so like overwhelmed. But again, it was just that thing, like, let go of the outcome, take the step forward, don't ever like doubt yourself, just go for it. You're like, it's just on the other side of that door. Yeah, I would say that.
Perfect advice. It really is. And it's been a beautiful comeback story of yours, Jazz. You should be very, very proud of how far you've come and everything that you've shared today. Is there anything else you would like to share to my audience today?
Well, if you're thinking about working with Nathan, I would say just do it. Like, don't even, just go for it. If it's popping up in your newsfeed and you're not listening to it, do what I did and just jump straight in feet first, because literally it is going to give you that trajectory to everything you want, and probably more than you really expect. So go for it. Definitely.
Thanks, Jazz. And yeah, for anyone listening, I do focus on the youth of today, but I do circle back and I do help anyone and everyone. And Jazz was one of those people that sort of reached out and asked, I'm not a teenager. Can you help me? I said, absolutely. So
Yeah.
Jazz, look at you now. And what we'll do is where can people find you, Jazz, for some homeopathy, for your socials? And we'll give that a bit of a plug now. Where can people find you?
Sure. So I'm just about to launch my website. The business is called Live Well Homeopathy. My Instagram hasn't been released. I do have an Instagram called Break the Spell to Living Well. Please reach out to me there. I love that phrase. That's my catchphrase. We're breaking the spell. You know, breaking all those programs, breaking all the like food issues, like, just, you know, and you can watch Cameron there as well. Usually I post stuff about how great he's been doing. And but the Instagram page will be released at the same time the website will be. So the Instagram page will be live.well homeopathy, and the website, when it's released, is going to be livewellhomeopathy.com.au.
That's okay, my listeners and followers. I will obviously share Jazz's stuff when the time comes, and we'll probably get it back on to really delve into the homeopathy stuff. Jazz, that was awesome. You did a really awesome job today. I'm so proud of how far you've come as the first sort of client to stick their head out of water and go, right, I'm putting myself out there now. And yeah, I'm so glad you came on. We did this testimony today. It's been a beautiful comeback story. A lot of people will resonate with it. And I really do hope a lot of people reach out to you for some homeopathy advice, because there's an underlying story that I'm looking forward to you sharing. And hopefully that does come to fruition in the next couple of years and we get you back on. And there's an even better story about to happen. And I'm just sending all my good energy towards it, because I know it's going to happen. So we both know what that is.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. No, it's been a really good chat. So thanks, Nathan.
All right, this has been the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis. This is Jasmine. I'll see you guys again real soon. Hopefully with some more client testimonies, some more guests, and some more content. Until then, live your best life. Take Jazz's advice of the last couple of minutes, and you'll be just fine. reach out and ask for help always. See you guys again soon. Cheers. Thanks, Jazz.